Step 2 to building a successful bootstrapped business is to generate cash flow. This is a step that, again, seems overly obvious, but it's not until you're actually in the situation that you realize how important it is to be mindful of cash and cash generation in your bank account. This is why I think the best place for any upstart entrepreneur to begin is as a freelancer. Because if you're a freelancer, yes, you're going to be working hard. You're going to be, quote, selling your time, like we talked about in the last lesson. However, at least in this way, you have a steady stream of cash that's going to help you scale your business. The reason why businesses fail is because they run out of money. It's never because of bad leadership or because of bad timing. Like, all of those things can play a role. It's that eventually they run out of money. And if you run out of money, then you have no more options. So you have to be mindful of your cash flow. So let's go over some specifics. First, number 1, it's totally plausible that you might want to keep your day job and do some moonlighting, build a business on the side. This is totally acceptable. And in a lot of cases, I think this is the right choice, because if you quit your job and you go, quote unquote, all in on building your business and you burn the ships, that's eventually a step that you're going to have to take. But in the very beginning, you're not giving yourself a whole lot of flexibility, whereas your probability, your chances of success are going to be much higher if you slowly build to the point where you can remove yourself from whatever job that you have. But you can't do that unless you survive long enough to get there, which means, once again, you have to have cash flow. So tip number 1, you might want to keep your job. That's up to you, but it's something that I think is really important you consider. Tip number 2, we already talked about this briefly, but we're going to get a little bit more granular here, is to freelance. Start an agency. Start doing client services work. Client services is so incredibly lucrative and so accessible to get new customers and get clients. Like, there's always a market for client services. People are always going to be willing to pay you to do work that they don't want to do. And this is why I still believe that most of the opportunity in entrepreneurship is in client services. So, of course, this could be freelancing online. So maybe you could be a freelance writer. Maybe you could be a freelance photographer. Maybe you could be a freelance web designer. These are all things that we typically think of with freelancing because of websites like Upwork and Fiverr that make it so you can bid for freelance jobs that are out there. But I also want to bring to your attention some other possibilities. There's a ton of money to be made in unsexy work. So maybe you could start a remote car cleaning service. There's a guy that comes around my neighborhood once a week, and he's got a van and he's got a whole setup. Sometimes he brings his friend with him. This kid looks like he's probably 18, 19 years old. And they just drive around the neighborhood, talking to people that are outside, leaving business cards and knocking on doors and cleaning cars. It's about $180 to clean a car. Takes him about an hour. It's really, really good cash flow. Same thing with lawn care. Same thing with cleaning people's houses. Like, it could be that the business that you start is going to be a client services business. And that's great, because as we talk about a little bit more in this course and also in Agency Clarity, you can learn how to build a production line of labor that allows you to continuously replace yourself so that your main focus is growing the business, which, whether you're bootstrapping an agency or a cleaning business or a coffee shop, whatever it is, your ultimate goal is always to get out of the day-to-day process and only think about growing the business. Okay, so quick recap. Maybe you're generating cash flow through your job. Maybe you're generating cash flow as a freelancer. And then the third, less advisable mechanism is to tap into your savings. This I'm a little bit weary to give advice to, because I never want people to put themselves in a position where you could be just shit out of luck, basically. If your savings is gone and your business isn't working, then what are you going to do? Then you're going to be forced to take out a credit card, right? And maybe take out a business loan. And those are valuable options if you have a plan. But if you're desperate and you're generating cash on credit, you're basically dead. You're worse than dead because you don't know it yet. And so you can just keep going down and down and down and digging the hole, as opposed to having the sustainable cash flow to help you grow your business in the first place. So the three options: you can keep your job, you can freelance on the side, you can tap into your savings. Whatever your option is, what's most important is that you always focus on cash coming in is more than the cash going out. Again, this sounds like very, very obvious, but when you're in the moment, it can feel like, oh, I'm doing work, I'm freelancing, things are going really, really good, and you never take the time to pay attention to your books. There has to be profit in your cash flow. Even if it's a tiny bit, even if it's a tiny, tiny bit of profit, this is fine, because at least the profitability is going to make it so that you're always breathing. You're never drowning. You're never underwater. And that's what we want. So step 2 is to generate cash flow. However you're going to do it, it's fine, but it's the most important thing, because you need momentum. You need cash. So make a plan, get an Excel spreadsheet, figure out how much you want to charge for freelancing to work with clients, figure out how much money you got to put aside to build your business if you're sticking with your job. Whatever you got to do, whatever your plan is, put cash flow as the priority in the very beginning, because without it, you're going to drown, and you're going to drown slowly, and you're not even going to realize it is happening. Okay, thanks for watching. Let's move on to lesson 3, which is distribution.